Okay, welcome to Aftonstjärnan, the Evening Star, the now oldest venue in Gothenburg screening films. And welcome to tonight's Filmisk salong with the subject Film for Democracy, following the screening of Pamfir by Dimitri Sokolutki-Subchok. And also welcome to the audience on our online cinema. My name is Camilla Larsson, and I'm part of the programming team at the festival. And this evening is done in cooperation with Jonsered Manor at the University of Gothenburg and B2B Doc. And a warm welcome to tonight's guests. Alexandra Kostina, producer of Pamfir, who has been working in the film industry since 2007 and started the production company Boson Film in 2018. And you are also developing a feature film project Vacuum with the next guest, Yelizaveta Smith, director, scriptwriter, and producer. And who founded the film company and filmkollektivet Tabor Productions in 2014 in Ukraine. And our third guest, Anastasia Kirillova, responsible for talent development at B2B Doc, a Swedish-based co-production platform targeting filmmakers living and working in the countries between the Baltic Sea and Black Sea. She's also a director screening her short film Morpho at the festival this year. And last but not least, Thomas Rosén, slavist, balkanologist, and senior lecturer at the Department of Language and Literature at the University of Gothenburg, who has also published many works around his research. And we are very happy to have you all here. So Pamfir is one of the films that was supported by Göteborg Film Fund during 2021, which was an initiative by Göteborg Film Festival financed by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, where we worked with 4 countries. It was Ukraine, Sudan, Brazil, and Kurdish filmmakers. And that was before the war started. During 2022 and now 2023, we have continued our work now with a program for exclusively for Ukrainian film industry, financed by the Postcode Foundation and the Swedish Institute and Region Västra Götaland. And where also Pamfir received some promotional support. I want to start by just asking you to give us your reflection around the film and maybe, if possible, tied to the subject of the evening.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to watch our film. And it's really true that it was, you already heard several times that Göteborg supported us on the post-production stage, then on the promotion stage. And I need to say that this support arrived really very in time, and I can easily say that without this support for us it will be very tough to finish the film and to present it during world premiere in Cannes Film Festival, because unfortunately because of the war we lost possibility to receive any support from our state film funds at all. So that means that, like, for anything that is now connected with film, regarding promoting it in the world, making Ukrainian release, it can happen only with the support of independent funds or private investors or with our own money. When we made this film, we didn't plan to make it so big, to make it with so many countries on board, and we didn't know if it will travel or not. But I can say that it showed somehow, the story of our film showed somehow, and can tell something about us as Ukrainians and Ukrainian filmmakers. That means that we can do films in any circumstances, because production of the film was during the COVID year, the same as Lisa's film, Butterfly Vision. We had 2 productions, her as producer, in the same period of time, dealing with all restrictions. The post-production of both our films happened during the full-scale invasion, so it was literally under the bombs. And now promoting and planning releases in Ukraine without any money, it's like when we're talking without partners. For them, it's nonsense. But for us, it's our responsibility for our country because it's some cultural front that we are dealing with now, showing you film. I hope after the screening of this film you know a little bit more about Ukrainians. Maybe there is some interest to know more about Ukraine, about other aspects of our life. So it's somehow a picture of how we are dealing with it. And the most important, even during the war, we don't have any funding from Ukraine at the moment, but film production is not on pause in Ukraine. Only during the last year, we have so many documentaries that are now premiered in Toronto, in Sundance, in Berlin, in all festivals. So it's an instrument of delivering messages to the world. It's an instrument to support our citizens in Ukraine. That's why we are doing release, to show them that the life is still there, cultural life as well, and we have hope for better life in the nearest future.
Thank you. Lisa, do you have a reflection around the film?
I think it's a very powerful film of powerful author and team, and it really shows some other side of Ukraine that is because a lot of people were in big cities that are very modern and full of culture, and but there is another side of this life in villages and in mountains, and it's also beautiful and has its own soul. And I think this film probably make people interested in Ukraine more.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, it was actually the first time I saw this film. You've seen it, you know about it. And I've been to Ukraine many times, several times a year, and I feel like I have a good sense of it. But here, I saw something completely different. It really struck me, and the director managed to open up a new world that I didn't know about, and a really strong message at the end. Makes me understand, wants to know more, and I think films like that are really important to actually open up people's visions towards something, a world they don't know, meet people, develop empathy for characters, and get involved in what's happening with them. And yeah, it's really important for development of democracy and shining a light on communities that we don't know about. And this was a very powerful film in that way.
Thomas?
Yes. Ukraine became independent in 1991 when the Soviet Union broke apart. And I'm sad to say that for many years, Ukraine has not been a well-known country here in Sweden. But since February 24th of last year, when the Russian full-scale invasion started, all focus has been on Ukraine. But in fact, the war that is raging now has been going on since 2014. And this war has resulted in the occupation of several regions of Ukraine. So it's, for me, it's very interesting to see a film which is about not about the center, not about Kyiv, but about one of the regions, in this case, the southwest. And there are, like, I hope that in the future we shall see more films about Ukrainian regions, such as Crimea, for instance, which has been occupied now since 2014.
Thank you for telling this.
Sasha, could you say something, you touched upon it, but about the situation in Ukraine before the war when it came to film financing and the Ukrainian State Film Agency and how it all worked?
As you mentioned, the war started in 2014, and our film industry started to be affected from 2014 as well with this war. Because when the war started, so first around 80 cinema halls were occupied territories. So that means that it already affected cinema release in Ukraine, that's first. Second, of course, for the 14th and 15th years because of the war and struggling after circumstances that we had of the after the revolution, we have change of regime, and it was time that we were building new economic structure in Ukraine. So usually culture is the first that is cut from the budget support. But that was at the same moment, the moment when so many talents came, young people received a very powerful push that we don't know what will be tomorrow. It's only now and today, and we need to deliver our messages and we need to make films. And that's why during these last 8 years, it's like I can really openly say that it's a new generation of young and talented filmmakers who made prominent films, debut films, all of them are debuts. And all these films were selected for Venice, Toronto, Cannes, Rotterdam, Locarno, were awarded with prizes, were distributed all over the world. And that push, unfortunately, was made by war because we understand that we need to fight for our culture, we need to fight for our identity. Ukraine is not the part of Russia. Ukraine is an independent country with independent language, culture, and another state of mind, and other values. It gave us, and one more thing, before the war, unfortunately, Ukrainian film industry was more like service industry for Russia. But when the war started, it helped for a lot of people to understand that it's like not our way of development. We need to develop. We need to contribute. We need to make partnerships with a country that sharing our values, democratic country, and not how to say this dictatorship, who don't care about our people, about our values. And that's why so many co-productions were developed, and almost all these films of this new generation were made in the European co-production. So it helped us to be somehow a little bit prepared for the situation that we have now. Because during the last 8 years, we were building our network in Europe. We were searching for new ways of financing more independent for our films. And when the war started, we already have this very active, powerful, interested in developing film industry generation, who from the same moment started to film first documentaries and then now developing films. And this work of the last 8 years helped us to receive now more support from you as well, from other funds, from other countries. So it's very important. It's a long process. It didn't start like just a year ago. And in Ukraine, we have challenges each 4 years. And we are dealing with them, and we understand that, like, for this challenge, for this cultural challenge, like the battle for our culture, we won't lose, because it's a battle for the hearts and minds and belief in better life for our people.
Lisa, you formed your own film collective where you help each other to realize the projects you really think should be told to the world. So tell me a little bit about how you work.
Yeah, so we met each other, some of us met each other from teenage age in Odessa, and then some of us met each other in film school in Kiev. And at one moment, we were waiting for revolution of dignity inside of us, because we were young, and we are, what Sasha told about generation of filmmakers now in Ukraine, both producers and directors and DOPs, these are people who were formed in the independent Ukraine. Even if they were born in Soviet Union, their minds were formed. It's very important, it's very different from what was before. And when we were almost finishing the film school, revolution happened, and it was, I think, push for us and push for a lot of very talented directors around us, because this huge energy that happened at that month, it's really kind of blow up all the culture and business in Ukraine. Really, it started to develop so fast. War started, but nobody could stop it, because this energy was just going. And yeah, we decided to do our own company. We were 3 directors, and it was a very good idea, because now for 8 years we did quite a lot of films that were on the big festivals, and we did a lot of films about war from 2014, and before this full-scale invasion, all of us were kind of, to be too tired of this topic, because we did like 4 films about war, and we were thinking to do some other topics. But then full-scale invasion happened, and we again came together, and we decided to make a big film trilogy about what is happening now, and we are working together. The good thing about our team, creative team, is that we can do almost everything, all the circle of production by our own, and really getting help, because how Alexandra told, there is no any now Ukrainian financing for the films. So we also got the Göteborg Film Fund and another like ITFA Fund, little small grants that help us to develop and to film further. But this team that we have together is important because we trust each other for many years, and we are helping each other from the moment of idea to the moment of the final cut. And this is what I think we are very lucky about.
Yeah.
And it gives you a possibility to be independent.
Yes, it's true.
And it's like something is now in our blood, that like we, if there are some limits, if we understand that something will not help us to make it, so it's better like to make it another way than to be dependent on something and someone. And I read several days ago an article about our film that I was surprised, but it will be interesting to hear your feedback, that like Russia, for example, as empire, couldn't, like it will never happen that they will send film like this, like for international film festivals, to present their country, especially during the war, because in our film we showed some maybe not so nice sides of Ukraine. We show problems that we still have. And it's like that it's only democratic country can support and like send represent country during the war such films, because we are not afraid to talk about problems we have, and we made this film to highlight these problems and to solve them. And that's what is different, like difference between us and Russia, that we are not hiding them, we are solving them.
And do you think that it will be like, what do you expect from like after the war, that it will be the same way, or?
Yeah, of course, there is no other way. I mean, it's about really our feeling of life. Nobody, if somebody tried to control like freedom of speech or democracy, then they will have Maidan again, because this is so important, because it's a conflict between your right to exist and to be free and totalitarianism. So it can't happen again, just, I don't believe that it can happen.
Anastasia, you work with several countries other than Ukraine, like Belarus, Moldova, Georgia, for example. So could you tell us a little bit about your work?
Sure, but I think I'd like to comment, continue a little bit about Tabor Productions, because we've been working with them for quite a while as well, part of our support network. I can explain more what we do, but it's a brilliant example of how filmmakers from all walks of life, all creatives, you have cinematographer working together, the editors, it's creative collective, and it's one of the strongest examples of how filmmakers can come together and create work with integrity. That's in a way even free from financing. You need it, but
you have to live from something.
You have integrity. You manage to do it. You have the strength, and I think B2B Doc, Baltic to Black Sea Documentary Network, it was actually originated in Ukraine. It is a support network. It's financed by SIDA or other like Swedish institute as well. And it's a filmmaker support organization that focuses on countries like Belarus, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, but it all started in Ukraine. And my colleagues, who were the founders of B2B Doc, they came to Ukraine, and actually during the Maidan revolution, and then they discovered this incredible energy, and filmmakers being able to get together, collaborate, and bring their stories out. And so, and there came an idea that to also help them to get out into international market. So the way we support filmmakers from that region is not through financing, but more through enabling or spreading, giving knowledge. And we create workshops where filmmakers from all those countries come together. We share, we develop stories together, work on them to present them for the market. But one of the most important aspects that I've discovered through our work is for filmmakers to become stronger together. And during our workshops, people meet and form teams, even across borders. And all the countries we work with are obviously affected by either war. You've got Belarus, who's a dictatorship. You have Armenia, Azerbaijan, there's war happening. Georgia has their own problems. And all those countries are struggling with a financing system that doesn't really exist, or it's difficult. And I think filmmakers in general, especially documentary filmmakers, they naturally gravitate towards subjects that are really important to maintain democracy. It has to do with highlighting minorities. It has to do with freedom of speech. And all those stories we work with are really important. And I guess we enable them to either come together or being able to get their stories out into the international market.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Thomas, from your a little bit more outside perspective and from your research, how would you say film and culture affect democracy?
Very much is the short answer. The slightly longer answer is that, as you say, I'm a bit of a red herring here today. I'm the odd man out. I'm here to represent academia. And I know that around the world, people are watching what is going on in Ukraine at this very moment from very many different perspectives. I myself, I'm a linguist, so I study the language. And with the language comes also the culture and the literature and also cinematography, of course. But I know that people who study government and law and many different subjects are also very much focused on Ukraine at this moment, because what we are actually witnessing is something quite unique. Let us sit back for a second and think about this country where we are now, Sweden. It's a country which has been at peace for more than 200 years. And as Camilla told us at the beginning of this screening this evening, the house, this fantastic house that we're in, was built by workers at the beginning of the 20th century for their own money. They spent their own money to build this house of culture and this theater. And actually, this has been the situation in Ukraine before, because Ukrainian language and Ukrainian culture has had to struggle to stay alive. There have been very active political processes trying to actually cancel Ukrainian culture and to make people change their language and so on. And this is now changing. And this fantastic process that if we can look through and see beyond the suffering, the human suffering and the terrible destruction that is going on right now, we can also witness the birth of a democratic society and a strong civil society where people are discovering that they can do something together, and things happen when they work together.
I would love to add, you just remind me a very interesting step, because like I can say that I'm working in filmmaking industry the same amount of time as this Ukrainian film industry really starts to exist. So it was around 15 years ago when I discovered that there are some film process in Ukraine. At the moment it was, like as I told, service production more for some TV films and TV series for Russia. Sometimes it was like fiction feature films, and then it was like big projects, and it was like, oh my God, something's big happening. And for these projects, Ukrainian actors, Ukrainian directors, cinematographers, like all branches, they were more like supporting staff. So they didn't play key role. They were like extras and so on. But we still had the film school, and this film school, people were studied, dreaming about making films. And when they graduated from the film school, the only possibility was to go as like first AD, or I don't know, like camera mechanic to this shooting set of Russia projects. So they understood that no one will help them to make films. And the same as Tabor created, it was like an initiative that just these filmmakers, someone had camera, someone had editing station, someone was an actor, someone was a director, someone was a DOP. They just gathered together, wrote around 10 scripts of short films, filmed these films by themselves, make it an almanac, convinced Ukrainian distributors to show the almanacs in the cinemas, and that was the start of Ukrainian filmmaking process. Because there were no financing, there were no government support, that it was just like, I don't know, around maybe 30 young, talented filmmakers who decided, okay, you don't let us make films, we will do these films by our own. And the same filmmakers, they start to search some possibilities, and they start to travel for European countries, searching for some like options. They saw the system of pitching, how it's happening, how you can receive money from State Film Fund, and they bring this initiative to Ukrainian State Film Fund. Luckily, it was a moment when it was like some changing of political regime, and there was one person who wanted to say something, to make something, and one of these filmmakers was near him and told him that, like, okay, if you want to have films in Ukraine, then you need to make this pitching system. And luckily for all Ukrainian film industry, it happened. First pitches were not really like ideal, so it was the process, but that was the start of the process. And starting from the first pitching, from the first films that were supported, Ukrainian film industry and Ukrainian filmmakers became visible on the European landscape, because starting from the first films, they were already so interesting and great that they were already selected and distributed. So talking about democracy is that, like, so we are doing it, we understand that no one will take care about us. We are the like owners of our lives and of our destiny. And the same happened when the full-scale invasion happened. It was the same moment when people started to gather in some volunteering organizations, having like, I have a friend who has a car, who has a petrol.
We did a lot together.
Yes, as well. So, and supplying. So I was supplying hospitals, Lisa was supplying like a lot of filmmakers and army, and and it was just people, not government, just regular people. And I need to say that like first 3 months of the war, the reason, it was of course our brave fighters, our military forces, but as well without this like mobilization of all civilian population who worked 24 hours for free to make this victory happen, without any support from other countries during the first 3 months, it will not happen. And that's about democracy, about having possibility to make decisions and understanding that it's only you who are making this history.
I would love to add also, and that the destruction of Ukrainian culture by Russian Empire didn't start now. It started centuries ago, and 20th century was very bloody because they killed a lot of our writers and poets. But now I want to add to Sasha that Alexandra, that to be true, this equal financing system in Ukraine happened after revolution. When it's what happened with us as very young people who came to pitch our projects, and we got our chance, and it was equal. So the system changed after revolution in everything, and in the culture also it was very important to give us this chance. Yeah, and another thing is about this. We have this weird horizontal like net of people in Ukraine. It's for me as a young person. I was a young person when the revolution happened. I saw it first in revolution, but then I started to notice it in everything. When something happens, Ukrainians can somehow work together in the small groups, in the horizontal groups, and to be true, for example, our production built like this also. It's a horizontal system of different projects, people working together. And in some ways, it's a kind of part of, I think, Ukrainian identity, this need of horizontal system in society.
I think that's what my colleagues noticed. Really, this ability to work together, to come together, and I think we've been really trying to show you as an example to other countries, actually, because well, the fiction film is different. You have to have a big team. We work with documentary, and in documentary, a lot of people are working on their own. And it's actually amazing what someone can do on their own. We have, for instance, in Belarus, they have a very particular situation right now. Belarus has disappeared from the news, but I'm sure you remember what happened in Belarus. And a lot of the filmmakers from there are in exile. And they are quite often working on their own, completely on their own, doing something that's incredibly dangerous. They can be detained, they're filming, and I've met filmmakers there's this girl, for instance, that was pitched a project, the last pitch from Belarus, completely on her own, doing a film about actually Middle Eastern refugees who got stuck in Belarus. She's coming with this amazing material and filming, secretly hiding, and also living in Poland, but somehow managing to get together this amazing material. So there are filmmakers who have a real intention of showing the problems that happen in countries, for instance, like Belarus, with this dictatorship going on, and they push these projects forward. And I guess, but still, those filmmakers really need support, and I think that's kind of what we've been trying to give you as an example. You can do this project, you manage to do a lot, but then if you come together, yeah, you become even more powerful. Same thing happens in Armenia. I have a lot of really strong, actually female directors from Armenia who are struggling against a very male-dominated film industry. There are completely different problems there. For instance, very hard for them to work with cinematographers who come from an old background, who don't want to work with women. So again, you find really strong, important stories that highlight vulnerable communities, women who are working on their own. And so I always come back to the example of Tabor and, for filmmakers to organize, because, financing will take you so far, but it's the film team that's really important.
Yes, and that's really amazing as well, like examples. So together with Lisa, we developed, and we are still developing her debut fiction film, Vacuum. And it happened that it was awarded in 4 international co-production markets, but we twice came to our state film agency. And it's always like a matter of like experts and tasks, let's say, for this year, maybe, which kind of films will be supported. And twice it was a feedback that that's not international co-production. So for us both, Lisa made film with 5 countries on board international co-production, I made 6. Our common project was selected for 4 international markets and received awards in each of them, but our committee told us that it's not international co-production. And we received this answer twice, and unfortunately European co-production system worked so that if you don't have support from your local country, you can't apply. So we had already co-producers from France, from Germany, from Greece, but we couldn't apply for their funds because we don't have our financing. So at the end of the year 2021, before the war, we just realized that, okay, we won't wait anymore. We found some private financing. We found our partners with whom we made a lot of commercial works, and we proposed them to be investors in our project with their rental equipment, like for example lights, camera, sound equipment. And this private financing that we found, we will use only to pay people. And that was not market salary for these people, because that was all of us made several projects that had some financing. And people realized that it's unfair. The situation that we are in, it's not because of the quality of the project, it's just, it happened. So the expertise was this way, and we can't be stopped just because of these limitations. So in the end of 2021, we had a reading with, 20 people in the room who are very successful, very experienced, and people who have a lot of work on the market, and they were ready to say, we will stop everything for several months, we'll work for your project for free just because we want to make it happen. So I think that's our strength in it. Unfortunately, the war started, so it was another limit. But I think we will do our best and we will make this film very soon.
Could I please return to the topic of films and democracy? I think it's very important for Western democracies to support Ukrainian film today, because I visited the homepage of the Ukrainian Film Agency, and I read there that the entire budget has been sequestered because of the war. So it's impossible to make movies in Ukraine right now. So you are entirely dependent on international support, is that correct?
And on ourselves also, because
yes,
international support is kind of small, and you still have to put all this work and equipment you have in the film.
Yeah, so it's super important for international movie support agencies to help Ukraine right now.
Unfortunately, there is a system, of I would say international, that if you don't have your core financing, national financing, then you can't really do real co-production with European countries. And this is a problem to be true. We were speaking about to Eurimage and to Creative Media Europe, but for now, rules didn't change.
Yeah, this is a huge problem, actually. Countries like Belarus, for instance, where will they have their core financing from?
And Serbia and Iran. It's not only about Ukraine. And that's the message that we're trying to deliver, that either it can be a possibility for such countries where there are limits, not because of the quality of the projects, but because of war or political situation or something else, that filmmakers from such countries have the right to apply for financing for the funds without local financing, or either having some, Eurimage is independent financing, but it's financed by governments of different countries. So if there is a possibility to have some small separate fund that will give this first, 10, 20, 50,000 euro, which is, you can't make a film for 50,000 euro, you need to have at least 500,000 euro to make fiction film. But even if it will be just this 50,000 euro, you can believe we and filmmakers from other countries, we know how to do films. Just give us this possibility. So give us this first amount, and then we will go and we will search and we will find partners. We can convince, we can deliver really wonderful projects. People believe in our talent and in our possibility to make it happen. And we just really need a small support, not to stop this process, because it's already 1 year that we are struggling. If it will be several years ago, it's understandable. It's not only about filmmakers directors and DOPs and actors. It's about the staff supporting. So people, if they don't have job, they are switching to another profession. And that means that even if in 5 years we'll have great financing, there will be no professionals on the market who can do it. So it's our responsibility now to support infrastructure and like somehow to still save people and save possibilities for people to work together. And I know that like each of us now, when they have some projects with international companies, what we are doing now, we are trying to bring Ukrainian crew on board as well. And that's as well one of the possibility to support, like if international co-productions can invite, I don't know, cameramans, assistants and so on to work on their projects.
I would like to add also that in all Western European countries, there are tens of thousands of Ukrainian refugees, and their voices need to be heard. And you can make movies about these people in Sweden using Swedish core financing, right? And the same is true for Germany or the Netherlands or Ireland.
I do right now a movie about Ukrainian refugee in Germany, so I know what you're speaking about. But I see the biggest problem in this situation, we don't have financing and all this European system don't let us, don't change the rules. So like Ukraine or Belarus authors will have a voice, because in the end what happens that other international directors like Americans, Europeans come to Ukraine and they do have financing and they do films much faster than the Ukrainians that don't have financing. And then their voices are heard. Yeah, of course, they're telling our narrative, but from their perspective. But I think it's very important to hear voice from inside, because then this is really not very fair to be true. This, you know, kind of colonizing again, like culture, like from the perspective of the outside world, not from the inside.
Yeah, that's hugely important. I heard at IDFA actually there was a big discussion about that, about core financing and the need to change the rules. And you know, the entire region, you know, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, they struggle with the same problems. You know, they may have a film institute, but they quite often they are influenced by their political leaders. Armenia, definitely. I think Georgia had a really strong, transparent system, which has changed recently. And it's actually, I meet so many Georgian filmmakers who say, well, we'll never get financing from our own country. Azerbaijan, we've just added Azerbaijan to the countries we work with, but there the problems seem to be completely different. I mean, there are lots of female filmmakers who want to really shine a light on the conditions for women, but they can only work on their own. And for them to get out with core financing, I mean, that's it's impossible. So it's really important.
When talking about Ukraine, do you think there is like a different need for what films the Ukrainian audience want to see right now and the international audience?
And this is a really hard question, because to be true, right now, being inside the situation, inside the country, inside this boiling water that is happening, you just see how much people are traumatized about what is happening, and it's a kind of, you don't really know what people need. And I have an example. We did this fiction film, Butterfly Vision. It's about war that started in 2014. It's made before full-scale invasion, but we finished it during. And I was with team. We were very scared to show it in Ukraine, because we thought that people will be re-traumatized by it, and some of the people really ran away from the room. Crying, but when the screening ended and we started to speak with people, I understood that it was a moment when I understood that why we did this film. We did this for Ukrainians, because for them it was kind of therapy also, going through these hard things. And so it's a very hard question now. We need more time to understand. Of course, our people don't need only comedies and, you know, but being inside the war and watching the war on the screen is quite hard.
But I'm sorry, did you ask about like what we need in Ukraine, or what world expect from Ukraine?
what kind of films, if Ukrainians want other films than the international audience want from Ukraine?
I've asked my colleagues internationally like what they expect to have from Ukraine and what they would love to hear now. And I was on one event where it was a lot of American Film Academy like nominees, like awarded from BAFTA, and people like from who represent like world film industry, and I asked them as well. So what kind of films you expect from Ukraine? And the answer was that like unfortunately we don't know anything about Ukraine. So that's maybe the moment that we just need to tell that it's another country, and that's our like goal to make it happen. And for example, last year it was jubilee, or how to say, 100 years, when a very famous, like Americans think, American Carol was written. But originally that song was written by Ukrainian composer. We have the name of it is Shedrik. And last year it was in New York in like Carnegie Hall. It was a huge event with like total sold out with Martin Scorsese on the stage presenting it, with Ukrainian choir who were singing this song. And that was a big surprise for them, that their like national, I don't know, heritage is originally something that is Ukrainian. So I think that's people would love to like really experience, because I don't know, like first cardiological implant on the heart was operation was made in Ukraine. Mr. Helicopter Sikorsky, who made this like system for helicopters, is Ukrainian engineer, and so on. So it just like people don't really know, and even now in like some museums. It was a picture that was named Russian Dance, but it's Ukrainian because it's Ukrainian girls who is pictured on this. So it's just like, it's the process that started, because before it was like one Russian empire, and people didn't really realize that it's separate cultures, languages, people, and values. And now it's happening. And that's maybe our goal, what we will show to the world, like who we are and what we do, and our heritage, what it is. And about people in Ukraine, I think people in Ukraine need hope. Our film Pamfir, I think it's a little bit about this, that we, like our generation, we are like between 30 and 40s, and we understand that like our generation, everything that we made before, at the moment, like next 5 years, we will be really struggling just to put the level of the support, of the possibilities, the same how it was before the war. So that means that we will build a foundation not for ourselves, not for our work, but for our kids. And our film is about it. And I think that's what we need to deliver to our audience, like a hope that we will survive, we will go through this challenge, and we will become only stronger and more powerful after it.
If I could just add that, as I said at the beginning, until recently, Ukraine has not been a very well-known country in Europe, but this is changing. And the fact that you are here this evening talking about Ukrainian films is evidence of that. And I can also tell you that there is a lot of Ukrainian literature being translated into European languages right now. So things are changing, although slowly, but still changing.
I mean, the entire region, I think, has been, I felt it a lot. You talk to other filmmakers, and you really sense how people have no idea when you say Georgia, Armenia. Obviously, Ukraine has really, now everyone knows for tragic reasons, but the whole region, I would say, you can even say that that region, in a way, is the future of Europe is being decided there, and the other countries are also affected. And this awareness of this region, what happens, the fact that there are so many different cultures, all very different, and they've been suppressed by Russia. And they have so many stories to tell, and really brave filmmakers who are ready to tell them. And I always, as a filmmaker myself, I think that's why I got really inspired to. At first, I was more of a consultant for B2B Doc, but then I got more and more involved because as a filmmaker, suddenly realized that I could help other filmmakers, and it became almost more rewarding than my own work. You could support someone's vision by filming, by helping them write. And I think more filmmakers from the West can do the same, you know, push the voices of those really important stories. And they'll be amazed to see what they discover when they come to these places, and shouldn't be put off by war.
Thank you. Time has come to wrap up. So thank you very much for coming tonight, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.